Lena Tan never imagined that her dream romance would spiral into a nightmare she could never wake from. At 27, she had everything she thought she'd ever wanted: a business degree from the University of Malaya, a high-paying job at a European consultancy firm, and a loving relationship with Ethan Ward, a 34-year-old Canadian engineer she met during a corporate seminar in Singapore. Their relationship seemed like a modern fairy tale. Ethan, confident, blonde, and eloquent, was instantly captivated by Lena's intelligence and quiet charm. To Lena, he was more than just a partner. He represented escape, a new beginning, far from the societal pressures of Kuala Lumpur and her conservative upbringing. Within 2 years, Ethan had visited Malaysia multiple times, charming her parents with his warmth and interest in their culture. In December 2023, Ethan proposed during a snow-covered evening in Vancouver, arranging a candlelit dinner by the waterfront before kneeling with a diamond ring that glimmered under the streetlights. Lena said yes, tears mixing with snowflakes as passers-by applauded. Soon, plans began for 2 ceremonies: a traditional Malaysian wedding in Kuala Lumpur and a Western celebration in Paris. At first, Ethan seemed deeply involved in every detail: guest lists, menus, and decor. But as the months passed, Lena began noticing small oddities. Ethan kept asking questions about her old job in Kuala Lumpur, her former colleagues, past relationships, and even minor details about her office life. He always smiled as if it were casual curiosity, but his tone carried something else, a quiet intensity that unsettled her. He often mentioned a particular period from her career, the 2 years before she left Malaysia. Each time she brought up that part of her life, Ethan's face would tighten slightly. She brushed it off as love-driven curiosity. But over time, she realized he knew far more than he should about her social media, her friends, even old photos she'd forgotten existed. The wedding in Malaysia was spectacular: 3 days of music, family, and tradition. Ethan wore Malay attire with pride, performing each ritual with enthusiasm. Yet, during the celebrations, Lena caught him several times secretly taking photos of certain guests, particularly a few old coworkers from her previous job. When she questioned him, he claimed he was documenting memories for their future children. After the festivities, they flew to Paris for their Western reception. Their hotel suite overlooked the Tuileries Garden, elegant, serene, and symbolic of a perfect beginning. But behind the golden glow of the chandeliers, a dark truth was beginning to take shape. While Ethan left to meet the event planner, Lena called her closest friend, Farah, in Kuala Lumpur. During the call, Farah mentioned something disturbing. A supposed Canadian journalist had recently been contacting Lena's old colleagues, asking unusually specific questions about her work, personal life, and financial background. The man claimed he was writing an article about Southeast Asians working in Europe. But his questions were invasive, too precise. Lena froze. The details Farah described were things only someone close to her could know. Suddenly, Ethan's odd behavior made sense. His curiosity, the hidden photos, the fake journalist. The realization hit her like cold air. Ethan wasn't just interested in her past. He was investigating it. When Ethan returned, Lena sat waiting by the window, her spa robe still on. Her expression hardened. He noticed immediately. Dropping his usual charm, he locked the door and approached her. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "About Kuala Lumpur. About Adrian Koo. About what really happened back then." The name made her blood run cold. Adrian Koo, a man from her past she had never spoken of again. Years ago, he had been her boss and her secret. He had died under suspicious circumstances. An overdose, the police said. But Lena knew there was more to the story. And apparently, so did Ethan. Ethan pulled out his phone, showing an old photo of Lena and Adrian together at a corporate event. "Interesting how your past keeps coming back," he murmured. "A friend of yours was quite eager to talk when I told her I was preparing a surprise for my fiancé." Lena's hands trembled. Her friend had unknowingly betrayed her, manipulated by Ethan's charm. He continued pacing, listing details only someone who had done deep research could know. The forged contracts, the missing funds, Adrian's sudden death. "Tell me, Lena," he said, leaning closer, his voice now ice-cold. "Did you kill Adrian because he was blackmailing you, or because you wanted the money for yourself?" Lena tried to speak, but her throat tightened. She realized this wasn't just a confrontation, it was a trap. Everything, their romance, the proposal, the wedding, had been orchestrated to lead her to this moment. Ethan turned toward the window. "You see, I could go to the Canadian police right now. I have enough to destroy you. But I'm not unreasonable," he added with a chilling calm. "There's another way, one that benefits us both." Before Lena could respond, Ethan's phone buzzed. He smiled for the first time that night. "Perfect timing," he said. "That's Victor, my associate. He's here." 15 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. A middle-aged man with sharp eyes entered, his expression businesslike. "So this is the bride," Victor said, his accent thick and his tone unsettling. "She's even more impressive than I expected." Ethan poured whiskey for both men as Lena sat frozen in disbelief. The two exchanged knowing looks. In that moment, Lena understood the horrifying truth. She was never a wife to Ethan Ward. She was a pawn in a larger scheme. "Explain it to her," Ethan said calmly, nodding toward his associate, Victor Hale. He pulled a sleek tablet from the black leather briefcase resting beside him. "She deserves to understand what she's walking into before the celebration begins." Victor sat at the edge of the bed, posture upright like a man preparing to deliver a corporate pitch. The detachment in his tone was chilling, a sharp contrast to the warmth Lena had once believed in. "You see, Lena," Ethan began, his voice almost businesslike. "For the last year and a half, Victor and I have developed a highly profitable enterprise. We seek out young women with complicated pasts, those who, for one reason or another, can't go to the authorities when things go wrong." Victor unlocked the tablet and began to swipe. Image after image filled the screen, portraits of women from all over the world. Some Asian, others Eastern European, a few from the Middle East. They were all strikingly beautiful and heartbreakingly young. "Our clients," Victor said, his tone clinical, "are wealthy, influential men with particular preferences. They pay enormous sums for companionship that is difficult to obtain through legitimate means." Lena's stomach turned. She finally understood. This wasn't about romance or love. It was about control, coercion, and profit. Ethan's voice softened, though his words were no less cruel. "The brilliance of our model," he said, "is that we don't abduct anyone. We let them come to us, willingly. Love, marriage, promises, all of it forms the perfect legal cover. No one questions a devoted husband." On the screen, Victor brought up documents, marriage certificates, visa applications, bank transfers. "Once the marriage is official, she's ours on paper," he said. "If she's in a foreign country with no family, no friends, and no legal standing, she's trapped." The truth hit Lena like ice. She wasn't chosen by accident. Ethan had targeted her deliberately. A Malaysian woman alone in Europe with a complicated past and a fragile immigration status. "You've miscalculated," Lena said, her voice shaking but defiant. "I didn't kill anyone, and you have no proof that I did." Victor's lips curled into a thin smile as he turned the tablet toward her. "Oh, but we do." The video was grainy, time-stamped from 2 years ago, a hallway in a Kuala Lumpur apartment building. Lena saw herself entering a man's flat, then leaving later with a suitcase. "This was obtained privately," Victor said coldly. "It shows you on the night your employer died, and you left carrying a case full of money, $300,000 US. The same money you used to start your life here." Lena's world blurred. Even if she told the truth, that he had abused and blackmailed her, the video would ruin her. "You don't understand," she whispered. "He threatened me. That money was repayment for what he did." "Perhaps," Ethan said, closing the tablet. But that's something you can explain to a Malaysian court, assuming you survive the extradition process. The threat was unmistakable. They weren't just blackmailing her. They were cornering her completely. So here's your choice. Ethan continued smoothly. You attend the party tonight, smile for the cameras, and behave like the devoted wife you promised to be. Tomorrow, you'll meet several very important clients who are eager to make your acquaintance. You'll be compensated, of course. And if I refuse? Victor adjusted his cufflinks. Then this video and every document connected to your case goes straight to the authorities by morning. You'll be arrested and spend your life in prison for murder and theft. He stood, slipping the tablet back into his briefcase. You have 15 minutes to decide. The event begins in 2 hours, and our investors arrive at dawn. When the door shut behind them, Lena collapsed to her knees. For a long time, she couldn't breathe. Every escape had been cut off, every option poisoned. But as tears blurred her reflection in the mirror, another part of her began to awaken. They thought she was helpless. They didn't know she'd once lived on the dangerous backstreets of Kuala Lumpur, or that she had learned to fight long before she learned to love. And they certainly didn't know about the small blade hidden inside her clutch, a relic of her past, and maybe her only way out. If she had to walk into that ballroom, she would. But not as prey. The grand ballroom of the Hotel de Lune glittered under chandeliers. White orchids and gold ribbons adorned the tables, and laughter floated through the air. From the outside, it was a fairy tale wedding. No one knew that the bride was fighting for her life. Lena stood before the mirror, adjusting the delicate silk gown she had chosen months ago, back when she believed in Ethan's love. The golden embroidery shimmered like sunlight. Now it felt like a cage. Ethan entered without knocking. It's time, he said smoothly, offering his arm. Smile, darling. They're all eager to see how radiant you look tonight. As they descended the marble staircase, Lena scanned the crowd. Dozens of guests, Ethan's business partners, investors, and a few unfamiliar faces. Older men with expensive suits and colder eyes. The gentleman near the back, Ethan murmured near her ear, are future investors. They want to see what makes our work so exclusive. Lena's pulse quickened. She understood now. She wasn't a bride. She was merchandise. The ceremony felt endless. Every vow a lie she had to repeat for survival. From across the hall, Victor filmed on his phone, documenting every moment. During dinner, Lena was introduced to Ethan's clients. They asked polite questions about her background, her education, her accent. One man from Dubai leaned toward Ethan and said quietly, "She's perfect. My employer will pay double." Ethan smiled faintly. "We'll finalize arrangements tomorrow." Lena forced herself to laugh, her fingers brushing against her clutch where the blade waited. She had already decided she would not let them win. Hours passed. The legitimate guests drifted away, leaving only the inner circle. Ethan, Victor, and their investors. Victor approached, carrying 2 glasses of champagne. "To the beautiful bride," he said smoothly, offering one. Lena accepted, but didn't drink. Something in his gaze, too intent, too expectant, made her hesitate. She could smell something off in the glass. "Drink," Victor said softly. "We should celebrate properly." Her instinct screamed. "Of course," she said sweetly, raising the glass. "But first, a toast to my wonderful husband." Ethan turned toward her, smiling like a man who believed he had already won. "To Ethan Ward," she said, her voice trembling with irony. "The man who taught me what I'm truly capable of." In one sudden motion, she threw the champagne in his face. Gasps echoed across the hall. Lena spun toward the exit, but 2 guards stepped into her path. Ethan wiped the liquid from his face, fury blazing behind his calm exterior. "You really shouldn't have done that." Victor gestured sharply, and the guards advanced. Lena drew the dagger from her clutch, holding it high. The blade gleamed under the chandelier's light. "Stay back," she warned, voice steady. "I'm not going anywhere with you." The investors muttered in disbelief, but none stepped forward. Ethan's tone dropped to a low growl. Be sensible, Lena. You can't escape. Even if you run, that video still exists. You'll lose everything. Maybe, she said, the dagger unwavering. But at least the choice will be mine, not yours. Then Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. Ethan, he hissed. The police are here. Someone called them. They're in the lobby. For the first time that night, Ethan looked uncertain. If they come in and see you waving that knife, Victor warned Lena, who do you think they'll believe? The violent bride or us? Lena met his gaze coldly. They'll believe the woman who tells them about your trafficking ring and the men upstairs waiting to buy me. The entire room froze. The power had shifted. For once, Ethan Ward, the master manipulator, had lost control. The moment the police arrived, Ethan Ward and his partner, Klaus Richter, realized their empire was crumbling. Investors who once celebrated their brilliance were now whispering in fear, recognizing that their money had been tied to a criminal network that could destroy their reputations and futures. It was Rashid who finally broke the suffocating silence. I didn't sign up for this, he said coldly, slipping out a side exit. Fix this mess, or our deal is done. One by one, the remaining investors followed him, leaving Lena tense standing in a hall filled with broken glass, wilted flowers, and the sound of approaching footsteps. The French police were minutes away, and Lena knew this was her last chance to survive. With the dagger still in her trembling hand, she turned to Ethan and Klaus. You have two options, she said, her voice steady despite the fear in her chest. You can stop me and explain to the police why a bride is armed at her own wedding, or you can let me walk away and hope you can still spin a story that saves you. Ethan gave a bitter laugh, masking his panic. You really think you can escape? Even if you get out of here, the video from Mumbai will ruin you. But Lena was prepared. Actually, Ethan, that's where you made your biggest mistake, she said, pulling her phone from her purse. While you were bragging about your entire trafficking operation, I recorded every word, every name, every detail. It's all right here. Klaus's confident expression faltered. You're bluffing. Lena tapped the screen, and Ethan's voice echoed through the hall. Our clients are wealthy men with very specific tastes. They pay handsomely for exclusivity. Ethan lunged toward her, but she raised the dagger defensively. Take one more step, and I'll scream, she warned. Let's see how the police react when they find the groom attacking his armed bride. Just then, the doors burst open, not with police, but with someone Lena never expected to see again. It was Mira, her best friend from Kuala Lumpur, followed by a man in a dark suit. Lena, Mira shouted, you're safe now. This is Inspector Du Bois from Interpol. I told him everything. Within seconds, the situation reversed completely. Du Bois displayed his badge. Mr. Ward, Mr. Richter, he said firmly, you are under arrest for human trafficking, fraud, and international conspiracy. Klaus tried to escape, but two Interpol agents blocked the door. Ethan froze, realizing his empire had collapsed. Lena lowered her weapon as Mira embraced her tightly. It's not over yet, Mira whispered. There are things you still need to know. Inspector Du Bois approached Lena. Miss Tan, we'll need your help with additional details. But first, I want to assure you that we know about what happened in Mumbai. Ethan suddenly shouted, she's a murderer. She killed a man and ran with $300,000. Du Bois didn't flinch. We're aware of the Vikram Malhotra case, he said calmly, and our investigation proves it wasn't murder. Vikram died from an accidental overdose of his own medication mixed with alcohol. He was attempting to fake a heart attack for blackmail, and it went wrong. Lena felt her knees weaken. Mira gently held her hand. He was blackmailing multiple women, she explained. You weren't alone. Du Bois handed over documents revealing Vikram's crimes: financial fraud, sexual coercion, and extortion of several victims across Asia. Lena realized the guilt she had carried for years had been built on lies. Vikram's greed had killed him, not her. Ethan shouted again, but his words were meaningless now. Interpol had already arrested his international partners in Dubai, Frankfurt, and London. As the agents led Ethan and Klaus away in handcuffs, Lena finally exhaled. Mira smiled through tears. "It's over, Lena. You're free." Months later, Lena sat in a quiet Berlin cafe, typing the final chapter of her memoir, The Bride Who Never Was. The book chronicled her journey from victim to survivor, exposing the human trafficking network she had helped dismantle. Her testimony in 5 countries had sent dozens of criminals to prison, including Ethan and Klaus, sentenced to 15 and 18 years respectively. Healing wasn't easy. Lena still battled the trauma, the memories, and the fear that had once defined her life. Yet, through therapy and courage, she rebuilt herself. Mira moved to Berlin temporarily, helping her establish an NGO supporting women escaping exploitation. Together, they traveled to conferences and spoke at universities, teaching others how to recognize the warning signs of grooming and coercion. Her story soon reached global attention, discussed at UN panels, featured in investigative journalism forums, and cited by lawmakers advocating for stronger protection of migrant women. Letters poured in from survivors across the world. A Romanian student wrote that she had left an abusive fiancé after hearing Lena's speech. A young Indian woman avoided a manipulative mentor after recognizing his tactics from Lena's book. Professionally, Lena pursued a master's degree in criminology at Humboldt University, focusing on transnational trafficking. Personally, she found comfort in a new friendship. David, a Canadian humanitarian worker who knew her full story and treated her not as a victim, but as an equal. When she confessed her fear of trusting again, David told her gently, "Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to trust wisely." That night, as snow fell softly outside the cafe window, Lena received a call from Inspector Du Bois. "Good news," he said. "We just rescued 17 women in Thailand, thanks to your testimony. You helped us find them." Tears welled in her eyes as she stepped out into the street, breathing in the cold Berlin air. Her story had begun with pain and deception, but it had evolved into hope and justice. Ethan Ward had tried to destroy her life, but instead, he had created a woman who would become one of the strongest voices in the global fight against human trafficking. Lena Tan, once a victim, had become a symbol of courage and resilience for women everywhere.